You just found a Polaroid Image 1200 or Spectra camera sitting in your closet, and now you're wondering, where the heck do I get film for this thing? Well, sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but unfortunately, you can't get it anymore. There's no more film for Polaroid Spectra cameras. Polaroid Spectra can only use film made for those cameras. Polaroid 600, SX70 doesn't work, and also Fuji Instax instant films also do not work. There is no film produced today that works in Spectra cameras. First, if you're wondering what the heck Spectra even is, it was a format that came out and was really used a lot in the 90s for a lot of professional applications, like, everything from crime scene investigation to, headshots for passports. The frame was a little bit wider than a traditional Polaroid. It's like not quite square, it's more of like a rectangle. And fundamentally, it was the same as 600 film, which is the classic iconic Polaroid shape that we all know and love. Quick history lesson, back in 2008, Polaroid stopped making film for all their cameras, SX70, 600, and Spectra. A bunch of people got together after that and started the Impossible Project, and they basically resurrected film. They made their own chemistry, they made their own version of Polaroid film that worked in vintage cameras, and they made film for Spectra cameras as well as 600 and SX70. In fact, for many years, Spectra was like one of my favorite types of cameras to use because they had so many really high-end features, but the cameras are kind of cheap and plentiful. Well, eventually, the Impossible Project recombined with Polaroid and became Polaroid Originals, now just called Polaroid. And during that time, they started being some trouble with Spectra cameras. Like around 2019, Polaroid just stopped making the new film for Spectra cameras. They had a lot of explanations about how cameras were failing, and all my cameras were not doing well at the time, but I don't know if it was something wrong with the film chemistry or the thickness of the frames or what was going on, but basically they stopped making Spectra film. So now in what year is it? 2024, it's been almost 5 years since Polaroid has made any Spectra film. So there's really nowhere to get it anymore. And even if you find it, the film's pretty old. And, the new generation Impossible Project, Polaroid Originals version of Spectra film just didn't store that well. Like, you wanted to shoot it pretty much as soon as you got it rather than, keeping it in the fridge for years on end. Now, you may be asking yourself, why not just get the old vintage Polaroid film from before 2008? Well, if you can find it, it's going to cost a ton of money, and most likely the battery inside of the cartridge, yes, these cameras were powered by batteries in the cartridge, not batteries in the camera. The battery's probably dead by now, and there's no new cartridges to do a film swap with, so you're just kind of dead in the water. So yeah, unfortunately, there's really no good solution. I wish we could still use Spectra cameras. Like I said, I loved using my Spectra system camera and my Spectra AF. Like, they were just fantastic cameras, but I think the lesson to take from this is not to be sad or mad that Polaroid's no longer making Spectra film, but just to enjoy what we have. Like, if you're really interested in Polaroid photography, there are tons of vintage 600 type cameras out there, plus there's a bunch of new Polaroid I-type cameras that are also excellent. So there's tons to play with still, and you know what? We should just be thankful for what we have, because film requires tons of chemicals and exotic supply lines, and it's not nearly as popular as it once was. So there's kind of just a limited amount of time we have with any film format. So get out there, shoot it, have fun, and yeah, sorry for the bad news. There's no Spectra film, but get out there and happy shooting.